Alright, you got us. We're all just a bunch of big fat fakers. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and say hello to Libby, who you never see, but she decided she wanted to be a part of this today. For how long, we have no idea, but let's just take this in while she's here. So today I want to talk about the possibility of people faking their disabilities, I guess. This is all coming from something that recently happened. So as a disabled YouTuber myself, this is something that I've dealt with on my own, and other disabled friends have dealt with this on their own channels. Molly, Jessica, James, Andrea, anybody else that you can think of that's a disabled YouTuber. But really, this all started when a really big YouTuber, whose name I won't mention, offered to help someone, a disabled Twitter fan. He offered to help her with her motorized wheelchair that she really needed. Whether it was to help pay in full or just, part of it, I don't know the details. But the point is, he offered to help. And this became a really big thing. I think I even retweeted it, and it was just something nice to see. But then I saw a couple of days ago, well, yesterday I think actually, that he had replied to some tweet, and I looked at what he was replying to, and it was about the disabled person on Twitter, and apparently he decided to stop helping her because it seems that there's a rumor going around that she was lying about her disability all along. And she posted another tweet eventually and said something along the lines of, this person, and the name was actually written out in full, this person is no longer able to help me with my motorized wheelchair, so I am still looking for donations. And that caused a lot of backlash because, of course, when this guy's name is popping up on Twitter, people are going to start, writing and typing and replying and whatnot. And then eventually she deleted the tweet, and then there was another tweet that said the same thing, basically, but instead of writing out his full name, it was just this YouTuber. Of course, the backlash didn't stop, and it just kept on coming. Now, this person did get a lot of support, but then there were a lot of people that were accusing her of faking her disabilities just to get money. I want to say this, yes, you may come across some people who are faking being disabled. It's very popular for people to fake being deaf and pass out like little ABC cards, the ASL alphabet, and try to get some money out of that. And there's been videos posted of that girl in the club pretending to be deaf, so this one guy went and danced with her, and that's another video for another day, maybe. But there are some things that people were saying that just made me go, you people really don't know much about disability, and we really have to educate you on this matter. So one of the things that was said was, well, she went on a hike in March. So it is now January 2019 that I am filming this, and this was apparently a hike that happened in March 2018. Okay, so this person apparently has EDS, POTS, and something else, fibromyalgia, and it's still possible to move on your own 2 feet if you have EDS, POTS, etc., etc. Elainey and Jessica Kellgren-fozard are 2 very good examples of this. Now, I am someone who has dealt with a lot of chronic pain. I'm not sure if I have anything. I have not been able to go to a doctor and figure that whole thing out because that's expensive. That's the thing about being disabled. It's expensive, especially if you don't have insurance. But anyways, the point is, you can be disabled and go on a hike. For example, I and my friends James, Rath, Andrea Lausell, Abby Sams, and Elijah, whose last name I cannot pronounce, we were all part of James Rath's playback documentary, which was about being disabled and going out of your comfort zone. And for him, he is a blind filmmaker who wanted to climb up a frickin' mountain, and we all climbed up a frickin' mountain. So James went up a mountain while blind, I went up while being deaf and being severely pained, and Andrea and Abby all went up being severely pained. So, completely possible to go on a hike. Will we pay for it in the long run? Probably the next day. Oh yeah. Ambulatory wheelchair users exist. Ambulatory cane users exist. I have a cane myself, and I've even used a wheelchair in the past. Jessica and Annie both have used canes and wheelchairs and still do. Stevie Bobby is another example. We have good days and we have bad days. Now, somebody replied to me saying that well, she says she can't walk at all. Okay, so again, this happens in March 2018. It is now 2019, January 2019, and I mean, I don't know when this person suddenly or started to say that she can't walk at all anymore, but this is almost a year later, and anything is possible and anything could change. You could be able to walk a lot more a year ago, 6 months ago, and then all of a sudden, it's not happening anymore. Another thing was somebody said that the sister said that she was faking. More often than not, abled families are ableist and think that the disabled person is faking. Same with doctors. Stevie made a whole Twitter hashtag that I'm not going to say here out loud in fear of being demonetized, but it was about doctors being ableist and just pretending that anything that the disabled patient said was untrue. You know, a lot of times the responses are, oh, just lose weight, or do yoga, or go vegan. Hi, I'm vegan, and that doesn't really change anything. But do you know how often hearing families will tell their deaf sibling, child, whoever to, like, just turn up your hearing aids, or you're not really deaf, you only have a tiny bit of hearing loss, or you just have selective hearing. And this is more common than you might think. The fact that the sister could actually be the one lying about her sister being disabled or not disabled could very well be an actual thing. And one final thing that I saw was somebody had a link to a wheelchair that was able to be shopped or purchased from Walmart or Amazon or something and said, hey, here's a wheelchair for $100. You don't need that $3,000 wheelchair that is motorized, mind you. This $100 wheelchair was a manual. You know, you gotta actually push it yourself. There's nothing wrong with suggesting an alternative, especially a cheaper alternative, because again, being disabled is very expensive depending on your disability, right? However, what's important to know is that not all aids are equal and not all disabled people are equal. I know someone who does have a manual wheelchair, but it's made with parts that work for them because they can't have this certain cushion or this certain back piece or something or whatever. Annie is much better off, I believe, with the power chair. If I'm wrong, Annie, you can come for me in the comments. Manual chairs, I imagine, are exhausting. When I was in a manual wheelchair for the first time, TSA or somebody at the airport was the one pushing it, so I didn't have to deal with that. But I can just imagine having to constantly, you know, move your arms, and to move the wheelchair is a real pain in the, I was gonna say ass, but I think arms would be better. But not only that, certain disabilities, EDS and whatnot, I believe can affect your arms, so they can get really tired. So having to try to push that manual wheelchair has to be exhausting. So now you would just have a little dial thing that you can push forward, or a button that you can push down, and it's going to go and take you to wherever you need to go. So yeah, no need to fret if you were suggesting an alternative to try to be helpful, but just know that if the person is replying back and saying that, unfortunately, that doesn't work out too well because of my specific needs, please understand that. The disabled person is always going to know more than the abled person who has very little experience with whatever it is that's going on. So back to the possibility of faking a disability. Again, I have been accused of this many times, and that's a video I plan to make later. People think I'm not deaf because I speak, you know, or that my ASL kind of sucks, which, okay, that makes no sense whatsoever. You know, people did the same thing to Jessica when she posted a video on iMedia because people thought she was faking being deaf because she signed BSL or SSE, BSL, whatever, instead of ASL. When Molly and I did a collab, people accused Molly of faking her disability, faking being blind because she knew where to look when I was sitting beside her, as if she couldn't feel where I was, and as if she couldn't hear the direction of where my voice was coming from, and people accusing me of being deaf because I could understand her at times, despite us saying in the actual video that we did, that videos are edited and we would discuss our plans ahead of time, and we'd often have to redo certain things that we said and whatnot. And again, people accusing Annie or maybe Rachel and whoever else of not actually being disabled and not needing a parking spot or a wheelchair or a cane because they may have seen them stand up and walk once upon a time on a Tuesday. Again, sometimes we have good days, sometimes we have bad days. Nothing is created equal, and it's even on a day-by-day basis for a lot of people. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying that nobody has ever faked being disabled. It has happened. However, more often than not, we're disabled. It's a thing. Of course, there are some things, such as just simply being ignorant about something, and that is okay. Nobody knows everything in the world. I didn't know a whole lot about blindness until a few years ago when I had blind friends and, other disabled people. I didn't know a whole lot about anything else. Ask questions. It's okay. But just don't accuse people all of a sudden of faking just because you're not really sure what something is. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope you learned some things. I hope I was able to debunk some ideas for you. And as always, I very much appreciate you watching. And if you feel so inclined to, I will have a link down below to help translate this video into any other language that you might know other than English. Again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!